Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today is an actress, director, stuntwoman, author, and martial artist. As an actress and stuntwoman, she's worked on such projects as Moonlighting, Blade, Barb Wire, Jag, Walker, Texas Ranger, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Rent, Leverage, and most recently you saw her as Morgan Elsbeth in The Mandalorian. She made her directorial debut and wrote and starred in the 2008 movie The Sensei, which I absolutely loved. She has appeared on the covers of numerous martial arts magazines and was Black Belts Magazine's Woman of the Year in 2009. She was literally born into the martial arts world, with her godfather being the legendary Bruce Lee, and her father, one of the only people given the title of Jeet Kune Do Teacher by Bruce Lee, Dan Inosanto. Please welcome my guest today, Diana Lee Inosanto. How are you doing today, Diana?
Hi. Hello, everyone. Hello, Brian. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for doing this. I truly appreciate it. It's an absolute honor to have you on the show. How we like to start things off, I want to go back to the beginning. I know it's, like I said, you were born into martial arts, but I'm just wondering, at what age did you first start, and did you have a say in it at that age?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So literally, I was born into the martial arts world. I mean, it's definitely my heritage, my culture. It's always been around me. I wouldn't know anything different, because growing up, everything around our home was martial arts related, from magazines to books to paintings and statues, little statues floating around the home. I mean, it was swords, weaponry on the walls, I mean, everything martial arts in my background. And so I couldn't get away from it. And I didn't understand, because sometimes as a child, if I visited another friend's home, I could distinctly see a difference between their home decorations and their home environment, that I lived a very unique life. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, with the people I would see, I mean, I grew up seeing a lot of the who's who, although I didn't know who they were, other than they were just, friends or
right.
family, like, colleagues of my dad and my mom. So, especially Uncle Bruce. So, and Linda.
Yep.
Yeah. So, that's kind of the way it was for me.
So then when you got to the age where you could make the decision, what made you want to keep going with it and make martial arts part of your life at that point?
Well, I mean, okay, so from the time I was a baby,
Mm-hmm.
toddler, my dad, in a way, made martial arts like play. So I had no idea that I was being trained in it. I was just something that was just playful to me. I really didn't understand it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, like, for instance, it could be like I'm in the middle of, playing with my Barbie dolls, and he would like, hey, honey, punch this. Hey, punch that. Isn't this fun? Or I would be in a restaurant and he'd go, oh, look, honey, if somebody brings a knife to you, and he would also get a butter knife. Trust me, it wasn't a real knife, but at the time, but how would you disarm this? Now, this is what you do. So he made it really playful. And sometimes, I thought it was funny. And other times I was like, Dad, come on, can I have a break? But when I first was cognizant that I desired to be in martial arts, it's probably when I actually got in a fight outside our home somewhere. And I kind of was beginning to understand, oh, you know what? This stuff can be really handy. And I remember my father, I was telling him the story because I was so upset, because I had this one girl like push me down. I was in roller skates and I was just so angry, and he's like, okay, well then I will train you. And I just remember he was trying to train me privately, and one by one, the students were coming over. We used to have this huge gym that still stands to this day in Carson, California. Mm-hmm. And people are like, Sifu, what's going on? He goes, oh, oh, my daughter had an incident and she wants to train, you know? And it was just kind of, now when I think about it, it's really cute. And he just kind of throw me in there with the men, you know, because I was the only girl. I was literally a little girl, and he just kind of throw me in there. And if I got tired, he let me just kind of walk off and do my thing. But yeah, that was kind of my introduction to being cognizant that it is kind of handy to know something to protect yourself. And then as I got older, you know, I had my rebellious stages. I wanted to kind of follow in mom's footsteps. So I would study dance. And my aunt, Lilia, who was my father's sister, she was an actress. So I was also inspired by her to be in the theater arts. So I had quite a diverse kind of background within the family. And, but then when I really decided to really commit to my heritage and culture, honestly, was when I found myself as a single mom with an autistic son.
Wow.
And I needed some peace of mind. I needed somewhere to feel a connection maybe to my roots and my heritage and my culture. I mean, you know, my grandmother always encouraged me, as well as my dad, to just kind of always remember your roots, remember where you're from. And so it was the one thing I realized that would help me deal with the kind of stress that I was facing back then when my son back in the 90s was diagnosed with autism. And so that was really where I made the commitment. And who knew that would lead me to a path to where I would inevitably be sought out as a stunt woman, you know, because I tried being an actress. But I never thought about really putting my martial skills to it. You know what I mean? I kind of separated them in my mind for some reason. And before you knew it, I mean, my career as a stunt woman blossomed, you know, and then, gosh, who knew that it would just lead to Star Wars, to do Mandalorian, you know? Who knew? So.
Yeah. Oh, and I definitely want to get to that for sure a little bit. But so I'm curious, how did the Hollywood thing start? I mean, was it just because you knew all the people through your dad and stuff? Or, I mean, how did your first movie come about? Or your first TV
movie?
show? Yeah.
Right. Is a stunt woman? Well, okay. So
or an actor, whichever was first.
A little bit. So when I was 18, I had auditioned as a dancer for the 1984. This is going to suggest my age. But for the 1984 Olympic ceremonies, they were grabbing young girls who could dance and cheerlead and do routines. So that was really kind of my way into the business was through dancing and cheerleading. Which is, you're the first person I ever told this to. So, and then there was some woman kind of going, hey, by the way, there's this show called First and 10. I can't remember what network it was. I think it was
on HBO. Yeah, First and 10,
yeah,
the Bulls.
And they needed background actors. I'm thinking, actor? Well, but of course, emphasis on background actor. But that was my first step on my own, just getting into the business.
Wow. I used to watch that show.
Yeah, right. And then you had to find you had to be with an agency. I think it was called Central Casting at that time. And then they ended up putting me on Moonlighting. And then I ended up being one of the background actors on that show for a couple seasons. And I was thrown a few lines, and that's how I got my SAG card. And the rest is kind of history. But it was a real struggle back then to just find anything, any work, because people didn't know what to do with me. You know, they're like, you're very exotic looking. You look Hispanic, but you don't speak Spanish. You look half Asian, but you're not really Asian enough. Oh, but you look, white, but you're not quite white enough. And it was so hard, because it's about type and what they're casting.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What a story. That's so awesome.
Right.
Yeah, because First and 10's not listed on the IMDb, so I didn't know about that. But that's kind of cool.
And a lot of people think like my dad had something. No, I had to do this on my own. So
now,
I'm glad.
You mentioned
I'm really
theater.
glad it was on my own.
Did you do theater in high school?
I did. I had, my Aunt Lilia, also known as Lona Nye, she was an acting teacher as well as an amazing actress. And she did the TV show The King and I with Yul Brynner when they were trying to make it a TV show. And that's when I first got the acting bug, just watching her. She did such a beautiful performance. But God bless her, man. It was hard for her, because again, there weren't a lot of roles for
Mm-hmm.
Asian, actresses, or just for minorities in general, just, most of the roles back then were for Caucasians, and usually if you were a minority, you would just get some kind of small little role, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. But she had a cool role. And then, but of course, to make a living, she also had to teach drama in Palos Verdes. She was the acting coach or teacher for an elementary school. And then she taught on the weekends privately children. And so sometimes my mom would take me and I would participate in her classes,
Wow.
and she kind of knew that I was sort of a natural. And then she would also take me once in a while on a Saturday to go see movies that might be playing at the DGA or Screen Actors Guild.
Mm-hmm.
She needed company. I guess my other cousins didn't want to go, but I loved it,
That's so
So
cool.
she gave me a real taste for the business.
I have to ask, just because I'm a theater nerd, because I have 3 theater kids. So what was your first play you did in high school, and did you ever do a musical?
Oh, I would have loved to have done a musical, but no, I don't know if anybody would want to hear me sing. I mean, I can keep a tune. I can hum really well. I was in Glee Club, but I definitely wouldn't say I'm a center stage kind of musical actress.
What was your first play then in high school?
I think, gosh, I can't remember now. This is terrible. I remember the story was like a kind of like, oh gosh, it was sort of like this horror spin comedy. And I should know this. It was, though, when I got older, when I joined my theater company, like Lodestone and East West Players. I remember we did a workshop, and my favorite role was playing Caesar in Julius Caesar.
Really?
As a woman. Isn't that funny?
That is cool, actually.
Yeah. So, but that was a long time ago. And I miss plays, plays are great, but a lot of unknown plays,
Yeah.
Sometimes they would have the students write a story, and then we all had to act and
That's
do our
cool.
thing. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, my oldest actually did Julius Caesar. I think it was his junior year in high school.
Ooh,
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, my kids all got hooked at musical theater at a very, because we had an elementary school that had musical theater program. So my oldest son, all 3 of my kids have been doing musical theater since like kindergarten. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, and actually
I'm impressed.
my middle son is going to the University of Utah for acting. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's
fingers
amazing.
crossed. Cool.
Yeah, I love musicals. That's another thing people are surprised. I would love to even direct a musical.
Really?
I loved East West Players. I'm not East. I'm sorry. West Side Story. Excuse me.
Oh,
East
so
West
good.
Players. West Side Story was always one of my favorites. And I think Gypsy Rose. I loved musicals.
Did you like the new version of West Side Story?
I did, but I'm so used to the original. But I did. I liked both of them, So, and I love Spielberg. He's amazing.
Yes.
So
That's very cool. So, and in your martial arts journey, did you teach at all?
Oh my gosh, yes.
You did?
Oh
Okay.
yeah. In fact, so I in the 90s, particularly, actually shortly after the death of, Brandon, I met my future husband. That would be Ron Balicki, and he's a renowned martial artist, and he's taught for years and years, and now he's also done stunt coordinating and even fight directing, just amazing. But back then we were just meant to be friends, and because I had this policy, don't date any of Dad's students, and thank goodness I broke that rule. I was a single mom, and I was supposed to catch up with one of my dad's other students who I would work out with, and it just so happened he was running late or something, and Ron was there, and we became really tight as friends. And then we started training together, and I loved it. And then, of course, we became a couple eventually in time, and I would teach with him. That was kind of the beginning of my process as a martial arts instructor. And I was a little nervous at first because, when you're around the martial arts world, it's predominantly male energy. I think I was just reading a statistic like 80% of martial arts instructors are men and very few women. But I found in my travels with Ron, I remember going to Paris, and there must have been, I think, close to 100 people there. And it was predominantly all men. And I just remember just looking at them like, where are your wives, your girlfriends, your aunts, your daughters? What's going on? And before you knew it, the next time I came around, it was awesome. People were bringing the women in their life to our seminars. And so I think that was kind of really the true beginning of really having my fingerprint as an instructor. And, Ron and I having that male female kind of vibe when we taught. And I think it worked out pretty well,
Nice.
and in time, even for me, like when I decided to start slowing down on doing stunt work because it was really hard on my body, about 10 years ago, I mean, I would say, no, probably around 2012, 13. I mean, I was starting to kind of be a sensei to the stars, so I would
Nice.
work with my husband, with Aaron Eckhart. I remember training Melissa McCarthy for Spy, Rosa Salazar for Alita Battle Angel. I'm trying to think of some of the other people. I mean, there's been a few, and that was part of my process.
That's kind of cool. So what do you think, that thinking back to that first time teaching with Ron to now, what has changed the most about your teaching style over the years?
I was a little nervous because, when you're a female instructor, you're never sure if sometimes when you're teaching certain men, if they're going to, receive, the information,
It's true.
But, and I get that because different cultures, different places, different countries, very different, but I actually found it very positive because the funny thing is a lot of men were like, I can't wait. I want my wife to see you. And so that way she'll work out with me,
That's cool.
So, yeah. So
Nice.
It was a positive thing.
Okay. Well, that's good though. I mean, that's really cool. 'Cause I know that, and I've noticed, and I feel bad about this because I've noticed over the years, not recently, but I remember once I was at a tournament, a local tournament, and there was like some instructors talking to some, I don't know if they're parents or whatever. And one of the moms was asking a question. And one of the instructors actually said this: when there's like 5 women standing by, he goes, well, who would you rather have teach you how to fight, a man or a woman? And I was like, are you serious? You just said that? I'm like, if one of our female black belts would have been there, she probably would have kicked his butt. Like,
oh
geez.
my!
I'm like, yeah, who do you want to teach you to fight right now, buddy?
Oh
It's
my
like,
gosh!
I know.
Yeah, I
but-
mean, considering that there are so many amazing, female martial artists, and then historically there have been amazing women warriors, and my gosh, I mean, there's Wing Chun, for goodness sakes, which is a very popular martial art. So,
and what's funny is even when I show my first probably like 30 guests that I had scheduled, I maybe had 3 women. I'm like, I need to find more female guests. And like, it's just, so I purposely started looking for some. Like,
wow.
But even if I look at over 100 episodes, it's probably maybe 1 out of every 5. I wish it was 50-50.
Yeah. I mean, there really does need to be more female instructors.
Yes.
I do think you'll find them. You listen, I've what I used to do, Ron and I not only have taught in Europe, but we would also teach across the country. And so you will find teachers, female teachers, and from rural communities to big cities, maybe they may not have the big names, but they're out there for sure. But definitely nowhere near the kind of number you see with men. But I kind of feel we're entering a new time, actually, particularly for women culturally, and you are starting to see women, especially like in film and TV, portraying, female warriors. And I think this is a good thing. I would have loved to have seen more of this, one of my heroes for me was Michelle,
I was just going to mention her. Yep, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, she's incredible. What a role model, and I was thinking about Angela Mao when I was a little kid with Uncle Bruce. I mean, oh my gosh, she was incredible. So yeah, I mean, we still have some ways to go, but there's definitely glimmers of hope out there, that are showing men and women that, women can also have their place in the martial arts world.
And even someone like a Ronda Rousey. I mean, when Dana White said, "I'll never have a woman in the UFC."
I remember that.
2 years later, Ronda's like, "I proved him wrong."
Yeah. It's definitely things are changing for sure. So
that's good.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what do you remember about, and talk a little bit about your first black belt test? Kind of what was that like?
Let me explain to you. So you have to remember, I grew up doing Filipino martial arts and Jeet Kune Do, and there's not really a belt system.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Not every system or style has belts. That's kind of relatively a thing that you see more and more, maybe definitely in like Japanese cultures, I know Korean cultures, and then here commercially in the martial arts industry, for sure, that is something, you see. But sometimes what you do is you see ranking can be through patches.
Okay.
I've seen people ranked through just in Filipino martial where they're given a certain stick with a certain color on it. In Jeet Kune Do, in the early days when my godfather was, really it was Jiangfeng Kung Fu or Chinese Kung Fu, they used to do the circles. It was a T-shirt and a circle meaning emptiness, and sometimes the color would change or the color of the shirt, but never, it wasn't a belt system in his system at all whatsoever.
Okay. So then do you get like certified as an instructor then in the system?
Do. I am the equivalent. It's so funny now that I should explain something like, for instance, under Fred Degeberg, Degeberg Academy in Chicago, they gave me an honorary black belt, like I believe it was 6th degree. And my dad signed on the paper because, it's hard, you can be, how do I say this without, I don't want to sound controversial, but it really comes down to the man or woman. Like, for instance, you can have somebody with a black belt and maybe have a certain amount of knowledge in their particular study and in style. But then you put them against, maybe I've seen Muay Thai fighters take out black belts, and they're not black belts. Do you understand? So it really comes down. And I do agree with my godfather about this. It comes down to the individual. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Individual man and woman. And so I know there might be a quest to measure oneself by black belts and how many degrees, but really the journey of studying, the journey of absorbing knowledge, that's an unlimited, journey. I mean, you know what I mean? It's how do you cap that with a degree or a belt or anything? So that's what I would say philosophically.
I love that. That's a great answer. I'm just kind of curious now, we lost Bruce when you were about 7, if my math is right.
Yeah,
so
1973.
Do you remember much about him at all?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So,
really? Okay.
He would, yes, definitely. He was quite the figure in our lives. We would go over there to their home. They would come over to our home. There was time where I remember that they had to leave for Hong Kong, and then he would come back again. I remember, oh my goodness, when he did come over, everybody like looking over the fence saying, look, it's Kato. And I'm like, who the heck are they talking about? Because you remember TV wasn't quite developed the way it is now.
Yep.
It was black and white. I didn't know what the heck they were talking about. And then, of course, I remember my mother. God, she was so funny because, she was a stay-at-home mom and raised us and took care of us. But sometimes Dad and Uncle Bruce would like to break boards and they would make a mess and she would come out yelling like, pick up this mess. I do not want to pick this up. I mean, I remember those kinds of
That's great.
moments of upbringing, and then, Uncle Bruce saying, sorry, Don, I didn't mean to get you in trouble. Which is funny now that I look back at it. It was
That's
hysterical.
Hilarious. That's so cool. That's just, I mean, like you said, and I've talked to a few people, like Ed Parker Jr. was on the show and he's like, same thing. He's like, he wasn't Bruce Lee, the figure. He was my dad's friend. It was like, he wasn't famous to us. He was Uncle Bruce, like you said. So
right. Exactly. And he was so funny. Oh my gosh. He was so funny and hysterical. I mean, I get a little sad because I always feel the world only knows like what is presented in Enter the Dragon or his other movies or what they see in interviews. And there's just so much more to him and his presence.
Yep.
And he was just such a family man. And then he also had a huge circle of friends. So he really had this inclusive environment. And you got to remember now, this is the 1960s into the 1970s. We're talking the heels of the civil rights movement. And I think he was way ahead of everything. And, in the Chinatown school, I mean, he had such a diverse student body of instructors on him and students under him. And, that was like a microcosm to the United Nations for me, it was so mixed, the diversity. And I get where that was maybe threatening, maybe to some more traditional groups, but it needed to happen. It needed to happen because by sharing the art of martial arts, whatever your background might be, it's really like being an ambassador for your art, and my dad, since that time has really kept the same spirit up. And if you go by his academy, I mean, or to any of the seminars worldwide, course, the pandemic has kept everybody pretty much grounded for a long time. I mean, but he's kept up that same spirit.
Which is great. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember. I don't know if I've ever met your dad. Because I lived in California for about a year, and I went to the Ed Parker's tournament in 95 when I was just visiting, deciding to move out there. And I met so many martial artists that weekend. And I met like Benny the Jet Urquidez and, people like that. And I can't remember if your dad is at that one or not, because I know he was on the list of people I wanted to meet. So I don't remember.
Oh, yeah. And he's 86 now.
Wow.
He's getting up there.
And he's still doing it. That's so cool.
He still does it. And I'm always, concerned and worried about him overexerting stuff, but he seems to be just fine. I mean, I think that's what keeps him young, and he loves to teach,
That's
he
good.
really does.
We love when he teaches, because that knowledge is so great that he's, still out there sharing it with people.
Yeah. And people don't realize, I mean, he's such a diverse, eclectic. I mean, and when I say he's carried on that spirit, I mean, he keeps that empty your cup approach all the time. So, I witnessed that man, the world knows as Dan Inosanto, but I've witnessed him, learn an array of different martial arts styles and systems and not be prejudicial or bigoted just because it might come from you know what I mean? He really is open-minded about really studying every art, and he's helped open the doors for so many people to bring and share into this country. A lot of people don't know that. So sometimes he would help with the immigration papers. I remember with Hickson Gracie, one of the first, and he wrote a letter, that he felt that Hickson Gracie could bring something really wonderful into the country.
Wow.
And then I know he's helped being an advocate for like silat, Indonesian silat, for French savate, which still a lot of people don't know what French savate is. Thai boxing, Muay Thai. I mean, the list goes on, different. So he really, European martial arts, meaning fencing, sword work, because he doesn't see that as different. A lot of people don't even look at fencing sometimes as martial arts. I'm like, oh, no, that's a martial art. That's a martial art, So, so my dad's always been an amazing advocate. And you think about that, like even sword play, like a lot of people don't realize, like Jeet Kune Do, some of the footwork comes from fencing. They don't realize that, even though the upper body might look more like traditional Chinese martial arts or Wing Chun or Western boxing, but the footwork and some of the strategies and philosophy comes from fencing, and it's because Uncle Bruce's brother, Peter, was a champion fencer. And they used to play around, and Grace would yell at them like, "Stop it, you're going to break a vase," or something like that, in that spirit. And so they had instead of swords, they used hands, so he was quite creative.
Wow. Such great stories. That's so cool. And I tell you, one of the biggest things that bothers me, and I see people online, Bruce Lee's he's a movie martial artist, not a real martial artist. Like, I didn't know him. I never met him, but I talked to enough people who knew him.
Yeah, no. He was definitely a real martial artist, folks. He really, he was definitely a real martial artist. I mean, my father was a military man, by the way. He would tell me stories like they would try to train in the Chinatown school, and almost every week or every other week, there was always somebody trying to challenge him, and he would go, "Dan, keep the class going." And he would go outside and fight somebody off, and everybody's looking through the windows. It was kind of funny.
That's cool.
In a way, and then he'd come back in and go, "Okay, let's work out some more." I mean, he was always having to chase away or confront people that would try to always challenge him. But no, he was definitely a real martial artist, and he was definitely a real researcher. And what he did for martial arts in this country and around the world was so important, because he created a huge industry, and then there's sub parts of that industry. So you have, if you're somebody that wants to teach martial arts and have a school, that is now a business, and we didn't really have that quite a bit in the 60s and 70s, not a whole lot. We now have more of the sports aspect, from UFC, right? And all these other, Taekwondo and, the Olympics, right? And then you have, now the entertainment part of it, so where you're seeing action like in John Wick, so it's pretty amazing that we can all be thankful for what he was able to do and the doors he's opened.
Oh, completely. I guarantee he was the first one. I mean, I was born in 74. So unfortunately he was gone before I was born, but he was the first martial arts movie I saw. It wasn't the movie that got me into it, because when I saw Bruce, I'm like, there's no way I could ever do that. So, yeah. But I just, as a fan, I was like, wow. So yeah, I mean, his impact will live on forever, definitely.
Oh yeah. And it's so amazing too. I think there was also I think what also helps people, feel connected to him also is being the underdog.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's amazing. I can go into a small village like in Italy and there's like postcards of my Godfather. Freaks me out sometimes. I'm like, whoa, I didn't expect, but it's amazing how connected people feel. And I just think it's because they relate to his story or his stories that he's had to convey through his characters and rising above the fray. And it's quite impressive,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to talk about this because this movie, I loved the Sensei so much. I cried when I watched it. It's such I'm actually going to be watching it with my daughter soon because she loves movies that I grew up on and stuff and that I watched. And so she right now we're going through an 80s movie kick, watching a bunch of 80s and 90s movies, but she's already read about it and she wants to watch it so badly. So we're going to be watching it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the storyline takes place in the 80s, although it was filmed
exactly. Yes.
Yeah, it was released in 2010 officially.
Talk about what led to that because it's such a and people haven't seen it, you have to. It's such a powerful movie, such a good movie.
Yeah, that was a scary time for me because I was really on my own and with my husband's support, Ron Balicki, who was the producer, and then my other manager, Tara Kiteman, who was also a producer as well. But I just felt I kind of knew that I did not like how my career was going. And I knew I'd been on enough sets that I felt like I could handle and understand and be familiar with the flow of a set. And I started writing this story because I noticed in my travels as a martial artist, particularly in certain areas where it's more conservative, I was starting to witness from once in a while, from time to time, where sometimes martial arts schools wanted to receive people that were part of the LGBTQ community, but they were also faced with the possibility that they could lose business. Maybe they could get retaliation. And then you have to remember, being biracial myself, I mean, I've seen my mom and dad had to deal with painful things where we would walk in a restaurant and you could tell right away, you could sense the energy when people don't approve of a mixed marriage,
right.
And you have to remember, my mom and dad married during a time when, interracial marriage was still considered a crime in other states in our country. So with that all in mind, I suppose that probably motivated me. I said, well, if I'm going to do a movie, let it be something that hopefully really represents me and what I care about. And I just couldn't do just a typical action-packed film. I didn't think that was my calling. Not that there was anything wrong with that. I just didn't feel that was calling. And it was hard. It was really hard to find the money and the funding. And then, we started filming, and then I had a couple investors fall out because, some people were like, well, we'll take it over, but you got to make your lead character, straight. And you can step aside now, not direct. I'm like, no. I knew that I was meant to finish this. I didn't care if it took me 5 years. I was going to finish this movie, And then I'm so glad I did. I went through some tough times because I wasn't always received well, and our production wasn't always received well by certain institutions like the school board. It was hard, but I also ended up in the Associated Press because, long story short, somebody was trying to compare our film to Columbine. And I go, whoa.
Wow.
How could you even pull that out of your hat?
Wow.
First of all, just the fact that my family came from Stockton, where we had our own massacre over there. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I put out a letter, and including to the press, because I just felt they needed to know. And that put me on the radar of the Matthew Shepard Foundation, which was really important at that time. And then other, activist groups. So really, people felt there was a need for this kind of movie. Now it's all over. You see these kinds of themes all the time in film and TV. But back then, and particularly being Dan Inosanto's daughter, or Bruce Lee's, goddaughter, or And by the way, I have a second godfather. That was Richard Bastillo. I should say that to folks out there. He took over afterwards. But, I mean, given the circle of martial artists I came from, some people, even in the martial arts industry, were not happy with me,
Really?
and yeah, it was a tough time. But I just felt, then what kind of martial arts teacher am I? Who are we if we're going to deny people that might need our knowledge and our care? And I just felt it was so important. I just felt very driven, and I had a couple of threats too. I'm not happy about that, but
Wow.
yeah, there were so many more people that were like, this is a great film, and really championed it, and I'm just so glad I did. And goodness gracious, this film I did was what led me to being discovered for Star Wars Mandalorian. Who would have thought, that the Sensei, my film, would lead to Dave Filoni doing a search, because Mandalorian at that time was looking for a real, organic, authentic martial artist who could hopefully act. And and so he and Jon Favreau were like, let's try to find somebody. So Dave Filoni, I guess, went down the rabbit hole trying to find somebody, and somehow he stumbled upon the trailer to my movie and clicked on it and watched it and, read up on who I was. And he's like, and I guess he told John, and I guess they reached out to casting, and that's where I was called in, and the rest is history.
Wow. That is cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I definitely want to talk about the Mandalorian a little bit, but back up a little bit to the Sensei. Once it was done, first of all, it's scary to think that just like 15 years ago, you were getting threats about it. I mean, that's just so pathetic and sad.
It is.
But after it was done, how was it received? I mean, what kind of feedback did you get about it and stuff?
Really great, because you have to remember too, it was tough for my film because it was released right during the Great Recession.
Yep.
But one thing I am thankful, about is it was one of the first digital films out there. So I was on, I believe it was Netflix at that time was one of the early ones, or was it Apple? Wow. I mean, we've had, we're talking the early infancy of all these streaming channels, and it was not easy, I think, or was it Amazon? I'm trying to remember now, because through the years there's been different streaming networks that have taken it on, but oh my gosh. I had people writing me saying, thank you. I use your film to teach my class about acceptance and people that are different. I've had people thank me because they felt they were suicidal, and they just were so relieved that, somebody from my background would care so much to make a movie like this. And then it ended up, I even got a call out of Washington, D.C., and they wanted to give me the American Courage Award for making this movie. And, and all the tribulations I had to go through to make this. And it was so surreal. At first, I didn't think the call was real. I thought it was
someone's pranking you.
Oh my goodness, this is real. And so I was flown into Washington, D.C., and then I'm looking at faces of well-known Congress people and people activists and, just incredible people that are movers and shakers in our society. And I just thought, this is just amazing and yet surreal. And it was honestly, my heart was beating, but it's led me to meet a lot of people from all walks of life. And that's something I appreciate. And all I can think about is, had it not been for somebody like my godfather setting the example of just taking that risk, even though it's never easy, it really did open up so many doors for me.
Nice. I own the DVD. I think I bought it the day it was released, because I read about it in Black Belt, and none of my local theaters had it or anything. And I'm like, I need this movie. So yes, I watched it as soon as it was available. I ordered it. So I love it. It's a great movie.
Oh, thank you.
So
thank you for recording my film. Thank you.
Of course. So any thoughts of directing again? Is the interest there?
Actually, yes, absolutely. The pandemic didn't do us any good, but I will say there is a couple of scripts now that I'm looking at.
Okay.
And yes, so I'm hoping to follow in the footsteps of other acting directors, like your Taika Waititi types.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to it for sure. So stay tuned about that. So it's still in the works.
Very cool. That's cool. And obviously, if we don't talk about the Mandalorian, my listeners will probably hang me or something. So we got to talk about it.
We got some Star Wars fans, yes.
Oh yeah, definitely some Star Wars
and
fans
it's coming
out there.
out real soon, March 1st, season 3.
Yes,
so.
I'm so excited. Yeah, because we're recording this episode in January. I think your episode of the podcast will come out after it's released. But yeah, that's another one. I watch it with my daughter, so we'll be watching the Mandalorian when it comes out and stuff. But
yes,
just talk a little bit about that experience. What that was like. I mean, the fight scene was so cool. I remember I didn't realize you were in it, and I'm watching the episode. I'm like, oh my god, that's Diana, and my daughter's like, who? So yeah, I had to tell her about you and stuff. Yeah, I know. It was like such a surprise.
Top secret. You do not mess with the mouse.
And it was funny when I was talking about having you on my show. I was at work on a break, and I had your picture up on my computer, looking through your IMDb, and my friend's walking by who's not a martial artist. He's like, she was in the Mandalorian. I'm like, yeah, she was.
Listen, this was such an honor to have John and Dave and Lucasfilm and Disney really embrace me. I mean, that's a huge responsibility when they pick you and they choose you. And you got to remember, for me, I'm in my 50s now. So for them to cast me in my 50s, it is just, I can't say what a miracle that is.
Well,
and
you don't look it, that's for sure.
As I got older, it wasn't about anymore my type anymore, being half white, half Asian, and how people couldn't figure out what to do with me. It now became about age. I mean, and people, I could tell they didn't want to say it, weren't interested in representing me because of my age, talent agency. They're like, oh, we have her type, but I could see, the type, but much younger. So I just thought my time is done. And I have to be at peace with that I did everything in my power to try to have a career. And I'm very proud, and I'm fine doing community theater. That's fine too, and still teaching my students and with my husband, which is, we have an organization called Mars Action Group. So our Mars is the short term. So, I've spent years traveling, just teaching, and I was fine with that. So to get this call from my manager, Tarek, who was really more focused on me now as a director. And then don't let me begin to tell you about the kind of difficult path women directors have had at Hollywood, because that's a whole other thing. But it's just a privilege. And I remember meeting with Dave, and when he told me that I was going to be doing this fight scene with Rosario, who was playing Ahsoka, and I already knew the Ahsoka character because I had spent years watching Rebels, and the Clone Wars with my kids. Nice. and also seeing the movie. And I knew, all he had to say was Ahsoka. I knew what my duty was, what my calling was for this. And I just didn't know it was going to be with a Beskar spear. I had no idea. I thought I was going to get a lightsaber too, So, I was really stunned, and, wow, what a privilege, and that whole crew, just incredible.
How long did that fight scene take to film?
So, I started rehearsal, maybe a month and a half before. And I would work with the stunt team. They would show it to me, and they were working with my sensibilities. And many of them had trained already with my father. And so what I would do is record the stunt, and then I would go over it with my husband, Ron. So we were training it over and over and over so I could be ready for Rosario, and still be able to put in the mental time to really dive into my character as the magistrate. And the fight scene itself I remember clocking 17 hours on the set.
Wow.
I just remember being exhausted by the ninth hour. I'm like going, because it's like doing boxing rounds. You know what I mean? You're doing in 1 to 2 minutes before they say cut. And that's a lot. That takes so much energy. And the costumes don't, even though they're gorgeous, don't make it easy. And then I'm wearing like heeled boots. And not to mention inside, inserts to make me taller. So that wasn't easy, and you're dealing with wind and, just, it's quite a journey, and it's hard to explain, but it was quite massive. And I'm so proud and happy at the stunt team as well. I had Lauren Kim next to me, who was like my little sister, who also trained with Dad. So she helped a couple of times to give me a break, my feet a break. Cause you really had to lean in. And know this as a former stunt woman. Your actors can totally get exhausted and fatigued too much if you don't give them a break. And the stunt double is so important. I can't begin to tell you enough, you know?
That's cool.
So, yeah.
So did you get to keep the staff?
No, didn't you see? It got melted down.
Come on. They didn't let you keep it?
No, they're very protective of their props, their costumes.
I figured.
I didn't even know my name was Morgan Elsbeth until the night my episode aired.
Really?
Did you know that?
Wow.
No, yeah, nobody told me that I had a name. I'm like, Ron, my character has a name, you know? So yeah, it was pretty amazing to know her backstory, because they never told me this. It's that secretive on Star Wars. It really is.
That's crazy. Well, I want to jump in a little different direction. I want to talk about some of the books you've written and co-written, and kind of what led to your first book. And I definitely want to talk about The Curious Mind of Sebastian. So. Oh,
wow. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, The Curious Mind of Sebastian. That was a special project because my son is an artist, and he's done this, you know, he's been an artist since he was a little boy. And particularly during the early part of the pandemic, I'm like, let's just get this done. And he would draw, and I just kind of wrote a very simple story that I hoped would help people understand what it is when you're a family first confronted with autism, you know, especially if you're a parent and you have your child, and it can be scary because you don't know the future. And I can't begin to tell you how stressful it is, because you realize now whatever narrative you had before as a parent with your child, you realize that narrative is done.
Right.
It's a new narrative now that you didn't realize that was happening before your eyes. And so I just thought this book is special because I just wanted people to kind of, it's lighthearted, but to know our journey, and also to feel Sebastian's spirit in it through his drawings and and I had a dear cousin, Tony Pilar, who was used to work for a children's educational publishing company, and he helped us put all the layout of the book together. You know, it was very simple done, you know, and we live in a time now, you know, we put it out on Amazon, and I couldn't believe how we had such a great reaction to it, you know, and I'm just grateful, you know, it's our fingerprint in the world, you know, and hopefully people will learn more what it is to deal with autism.
Cool. And I will definitely put a link for that out there also.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What about the Bruce Lee Life of a Legend book that you and Fiaz Rafiq wrote together?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was one of many people asked to participate, but that was really Fiaz, man. He was doing the heavy lifting on that one, having to accumulate everybody together. So, yeah, so I was just there to kind of support and bring my voice to it. And, you know, hopefully, you know, people will go to it, you know, but I am working on my own book right now. So cool. I'm
okay.
Yeah. So, but it's still in the works. So, but
is that an autobiography or another type?
Yeah. It's kind of, with a little humorous little, you know, take on it, you know, because I've had so many people when I tell them stories, you know, especially about Dad or Uncle Bruce or just being around Hollywood or being mixed, they're just like, why don't you write a book about this? You know, this is a complete different perspective, you know, a child's perspective. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of what I'm working on right now.
Awesome. I can't wait till that comes out. I will definitely promote that one and order a copy. So cool.
Thank you.
So what is some advice you would give someone who's thinking of getting involved in martial arts for the first time in their life? They've never done it, and they're just wondering maybe one or two tips. Like, what should I look for in an instructor, and maybe some things I should avoid?
Ooh, good question. It depends on why you want to do the martial arts. You know, there's some that have to do it because if they are in law enforcement or military, it helps to have tools of the trade. You know what I mean? And then, of course, I've met people who were abused or, you know, victims of crime.
Yep.
They're searching to recapture something to bring out and confront whatever it is that might be scary. And so martial arts can kind of help, you know, someone along that journey. You know what I mean? So it really, first of all, it depends on why, what is your why? Okay. Now I tend to cringe anytime I hear somebody say, yeah, I want to learn martial arts to kick ass. That kind of student, I tend to go, I think I'm going to pass. And you know, and honestly, in the old days, even with my father or even with my godfather, if somebody said that, you know, usually they were denied. They weren't even allowed to the Chinatown school. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, my godfather relied on my dad to really vet people out and make sure that the martial arts would be used in a responsible way, not
That's
to be a
cool.
bully. But what I get concerned about is almost I do worry about schools that don't have a philosophy, and I find that if it's just all based on the physical, just the warrior part of it and not the philosophical, that's where I worry about what kind of future martial artists are we grooming for tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I personally, if I was looking and if I was a newbie, I would be looking at what is the philosophy of the martial arts teacher or the school owner? Is this about respect? Is this about where they don't look down on being kind? Because you can still be a strong person, but also feel that there's strength in being kind. And so I would definitely look at that philosophically, as an indicator, because then you'll understand the mindset more of an instructor. I've heard of horror stories of people like, oh, I wish I would have known more because I just thought, oh, this guy's a great champion or whatever, and kicks ass, and and then there's problems, and then there's other people that really have an empty your cup kind of attitude. They're receptive to the knowledge of other schools. You know what I mean? They don't try to look down on other teachers, because what people probably don't know is most of the time when you do study martial arts, most of the time you don't have to use it. A lot of times you won't, unless you want to go down that path and you really want to try UFC or something like that, or you want a career in the entertainment field. A lot of times people are just there because they're looking for health and well-being,
Yep.
and that there is something real to that. And so I'm like, Tai Chi is a beautiful art. They all serve their own different ways to people who are interested. And there's so many hundreds of styles out there, soft styles, hard styles. So it just depends. What is your why? And look for the teacher that is a decent human being and has a philosophy to them.
Nice. You mentioned philosophy. So next question then, in all your years of martial arts throughout your life, is there one philosophy you've learned that just rises to the top? You keep coming back to it as part of your everyday life.
Oh, gosh. I don't know, because sometimes it depends on what phase I'm going through in my life or where. But I think lately, for me, it's about being in the moment, learning to live for today. And that sounds almost like something you might even learn in yoga or meditation, but it all is interconnected. At one time, the martial arts belonged to systems where that was kind of all under one umbrella, learning to meditate, learning to be in the moment, learning to breathe through stress, learning to take that time. And so I try to live every day, one moment at a time, and to live with great gratitude. And that's kind of my spiritual path. That's what I believe philosophically.
That's a great
answer. And then
answer.
I also believe in listening to people and just to empty your cup. That is a really beautiful saying. And I think it's a good thing,
Definitely.
So, yeah. So There you have it.
I like it. All right. So I'm curious then, what are your thoughts on MMA and the UFC? And are you a fan?
I have friends and colleagues that participated in it, and
Nice.
It's a rugged sport, man. That is a rugged sport. My husband used to go fight in the early days before MMA took off in Valley to-Do in Japan, and it's a tough sport. And I commend anybody that can enter the ring.
I've actually judged MMA. I'd never want to get in there though.
Yeah, it's a lot on your body. So
definitely.
Yeah.
All right, I have some fun questions to wrap it up. This one, I'm pretty sure I know at least two of the answers, but we'll see. What are 3, 4, 5 names you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
No.
I'm like, I'm pretty sure if you don't pick your dad and your uncle, there's probably something wrong. But
yeah, I got to put them up. Jeez. No, I don't know. No. I can't. I just can't. Hold on a second. God, there's just been so many.
And they don't have to be people you know and met.
Yeah, no, I was Wing Chun. You got to have Wing Chun.
Yep.
Girl power. Amara Shiba.
Nice.
That's 4, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
is it 5?
Whatever. I've had people do as few as 2 and as many as 8. So that's kind of, it's your personal Mount Rushmore. So whatever you want to put up there.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. This is it's so hard because there's so many amazing martial artists.
It is a tough one.
It is. I don't know. I guess because I don't know why Jun Rhee keeps coming to mind because I loved Jun Rhee.
Nice.
You know?
Yep.
So, yeah, there you go. I'll probably be thinking more about it tonight. Like, maybe I should have said this. Maybe this.
And I tell people, like, people ask me that. I'm like, well, what I tell you today might not be what I tell you tomorrow. So it could change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Now, this one, you can't pick one that you worked on, but a favorite martial arts book.
Way the Peaceful Warrior. Is that okay with Dan Millman?
Nice. That's a good one. I think you're the second person that's picked that one. So
yeah, there's also I also loved Chinese Kung Fu, the philosophical art of self-defense that Uncle Bruce did. I know everybody likes the Tao. I get it, but I liked that. That was his early stuff. There's some really cool books. Yeah.
Nice. All right. And this one you might not have an answer for, but I'm not sure if you ever were a video gamer. Do you have a favorite martial arts video game?
No, I should. I was just thinking, I really need to get into video games. Everybody tells me, like, you need to try this. I'm like, so yeah, I got to try this
So
year.
your kids never got you into it?
No, but I tried, and they're like, give that back to me. And I go, ooh, this is dangerous. I'm afraid I won't come out and do my motherly duties. The kids won't get dinner, you know. So.
Nice. That's actually funny you say, because back in the 80s when we got our first ever Atari 2600 as kids, and I remember one time we got Miss Pac-Man, and we got my mom to try it. And we just kind of forgot about it. And we came home one day. We left. She started playing it. We came home one day. It was like 4 hours later, and she was still playing. And we're like,
I believe it.
And did you take a break? She's like, no, I've been playing the whole time.
Yeah, I would be afraid. I just wouldn't come up for water. For air. My goodness. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. These last few, again, can't talk about one that you've worked on or been involved in. A favorite martial arts TV show.
Oh, there's so many good ones. But I got to tell you, my hat goes out to Shannon. Uncle Bruce would be so proud of Shannon. Warrior. Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, I do like Warrior. It's really good. So if nobody's seen it, go see it. It's incredible.
We've talked about it a lot on this show. It's a few people have picked it, and it's such an amazing show.
Yeah, it is. It's really good, and I'm just so impressed. That Shannon really got this off the ground, and I've met, I know Jason, I know met Andrew sort of online during COVID, but
nice.
Yeah, there's just so many incredible people working on that show. So yeah, I love Warrior. That's for cool. Sure as a TV show.
I'm hoping to have Shannon on the show. I put a request out there and my fingers crossed I get a response. So
I hope so too, because she's doing so much with the foundation. I mean, she is such a hard worker, and she really just puts it all out there, and she's got such a lovely heart,
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, next one. How about a favorite martial arts movie?
Oh, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Enter the all dragons. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Enter the Dragon for sure. Yeah, nice. I will always say Enter the Dragon, and I'll tell you why, because I mean, that was really on an international level. It was almost like how people saw Star Wars was how people felt about Enter the Dragon, because they had never seen anything like that, and that just opened the doors wide open. And I love the story, and I love him, and yeah, so those two.
Okay.
Ty.
Not going to pick one of your dads, huh?
Oh, Game of Death. I love Game of Death. I love the fight scenes, but Enter the Dragon is still something that always. And I love Return of the Dragon too, but yeah. But I love Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon because of Ang Lee. He's one of my favorite directors. Yes.
I tell you though, with Game of Death, I wish, as bad as they did after he passed, and they tried to like add like the bad scenes with like the cutout face. I wish they'd go back now with today's technology and redo that.
Yeah,
because it could be so good.
I think all the time. I think about that all the time. Sure. Nice. Yeah, I agree with you.
All right, now this one doesn't have to be a martial arts movie. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Just a favorite movie fight scene.
Oh wow, God, there's so many great movie fight scenes, but. I gotta tell you, I liked Ung Bak.
Oh yeah, Tony Ya. Yep.
Oh gosh. Ray had some great. This is really hard. No, I can't. I'm not one of these people that can just say that one, but Okay, never mind. Wait, I take that back. The one between Chuck Norris and Uncle Bruce. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yes. Way of the Dragon.
That was kind of cool, and groundbreaking and symbolic and philosophical. And that's probably because I know why it's philosophical,
Yep. And the Coliseum. That's so cool.
Coliseum fight. Yeah. There was some, because it wasn't like boom, 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 boom. It was, they took the moments to make the action dialogue. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
They didn't even have to say dialogue to each other. You kind of could tell what they were going for. And my father would tell me more about that, and I thought that was pretty magnificent.
That's
to
awesome.
do that.
Well, before I let you go, anything I maybe haven't asked you that you want to make sure we get out there? Anything we need to talk about, or upcoming things you want to mention?
There are upcoming things, but I can't mention them.
Okay, I kind of figured that.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are some things on the horizon, but I living in an era of NDAs. I can't even do anything.
I do voiceover work on the side, so I know about I've had to sign probably not as many as you, but I've had to sign a few NDAs over the years.
I bet you have a great voice too.
Thank you, appreciate that. I do mostly commercial stuff and e-learning stuff, and I've never got into like the animation type stuff or anything, but it's fun. It's fun. I've been doing it about a little over 20 years. So.
Wow, that's amazing.
Nice.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
It's fun. Cool. Well, Diana, seriously, this has been an actual dream come true. Seriously, I'm speechless. I can't express how much of an honor it is to have you on the show. It's been so cool. You're an amazing storyteller. And like I said, the Sensei, I can't wait to watch it with my daughter. Absolutely can't wait to watch it with her. And just continued success. And I just so appreciate you taking the time. I know how busy you are and stuff. And I truly appreciate your time doing this.
Oh, thank you, Brian. And thank you everyone out there who listened. So I really appreciate it. So, and thank you for being patient with my mic skills.
It's all good. It worked out. That's the important thing.
Excellent. Okay. Well, then much ado to you then, and to everyone else. So have a beautiful day out there.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.